in my experience, working with large organizations, when I was leading large organizations in the past, one of the things I found was the rule was essentially communicate, then communicate again. Live what you communicate again, and then test for understanding. And usually what I meant by that is every time you think you've communicated something, you've just gotten started. I found oftentimes I would have to retell a message 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times, right? More and more and more. And in various different modalities too. Some people like to hear it, some people like to see it in video, other people like to experience it kinesthetically. So what I would do is I would communicate that message. But more importantly, I think it was important to live that message. So it wasn't just what I was saying, it was what people could see me doing. Let me give you a quick example. I had a CEO when I was a senior executive for one company. He came in and talked about cost cutting. For 6 days we talked about cost cutting. And then at the end he left in a private chauffeured limo. Okay? So it's very interesting because all of that work was then called into question by his choice of vehicles to get to the airport, right? So you got to live the communication as well. Whatever it is that you're communicating, you need to be demonstrating that. But when you think you've communicated enough, you really haven't. What I like to do is go out into the branches or the shop floor after I've sent my message out and really test for understanding right on the shop floor, right in the branches. Maybe, take 2 or 3, 4 or 5 different samples and see whether or not the message is getting through. Ask them questions. Find out what it is that they understand about it. The key thing is if you can keep people focused on a message, there's great power in that. There's power in focus. And that's what I find communication is so powerful, is that it's focusing the organization. Diffusion equals weakness. Concentration and focus equals power. And that's where the power of the CEO, the power of the senior executive is making sure that that message gets clear, that they're living it, and that they test for understanding at all levels of the organization. I think you need to trade it as often as you need it. I often said, one of the tests that I always had is, if I put a gun to your head and said, do this, and you can't do it, you need training. Okay?
Okay.
So I think that test works quite well. It's a bit of a rough analogy, but you understand what I mean. Is that if the person knows how to do it, then they don't need training, they need coaching, they need some other method to get them to do what you want them to do. But if they can't do it, or if they don't understand how to do it, then you need to train them. So what I would do is I would train to make sure that I would test for understanding to make sure that everybody my senior team understood how to communicate. I test their methods of communication and understand that they had a good way to reach their audiences. And if they don't, pull them together. Bring someone in from the outside if you need to. Do whatever you got to do to make sure that they are effective communicators as well. Because your message is going to lead from your lips to their minds and to their hearts. Okay? And if they can't translate that from themselves into their people, then it stops with them. And this is what happens with a lot of senior teams, is they get maybe 1, maybe 2 levels down into the organization, and then the message gets diffused. Okay? So what you have to do is you have to have not only a strategy, not the communication, but a strategy for that communication as well. How are you going to get it down at the levels of the organization? And if your people don't understand how to do that, you need to train them.